We're back, and we're always back. It's always like this every time. We turn the thing on, we look at you, and we say, all right, everybody, welcome back to another fun-filled episode of Pop Goes the Zebra. Jeremy the ref, Jesse the ref. Jesse, how are your balls?
My balls are good.
Good. It's always good to have good balls.
Trying to warm up. It's a little cold out here, but I'm in the nice. Oh, I wish I was drinky. I'm still technically on shift.
Shrinky. I said no. I don't know. You do the drinky all you want.
Yeah. No, like I said, to be perfectly honest, as we're recording this, I should be, as I was telling you earlier, I should be freezing my ass off at Nissan Stadium watching the Predators getting their asses handed to them by Tampa Bay. Oh my God. What little bit I watched of the game, it's like, yeah, Tampa Bay has it. They're
sooner or later, Tampa Bay is going to pay for being good, and then they'll fade back into obscurity again. And we'll all be so happy.
Yeah. Oh, no, I agree. I just don't see it happening in the next 2 to 3 years. I think they're still. Oh, there you are. I think they're still.
Camera.
Yeah. They're still just. They're stupid good.
Yep.
I potentially see them making another run for the cup, but I don't know. Yeah. Nashville, we might get first round, but we'll end up getting put out probably game 5 or game 6 or round 1. Never fails.
Good. Screw them. Those low down, no good, dirty, rotten Tampa fucking Nashville Predators. Fuck them.
All right.
As my favorite television president once said, fuck them all to death, Mr. Hat.
Oh, man. Fucking President Garrison is so great. I got to go back and rewatch those. Like, there's a whole chunk of South Park that I've missed, and I regret missing them just for like whatever reason. And it's like, I really should go back and watch that.
So that's the beautiful thing about like South Park and Family Guy. You don't really have to watch consistently to understand the show. The Simpsons got that way for a minute where like you had to watch every week, otherwise you're going to be lost. But like overall, South Park, you've never really had to pay attention. Now, I will say when they start doing their specials, like the pandemic specials, those were.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But like overall, they're usually pretty good at just kind of giving you 20 minutes of ha ha ha, and on with your day you go. And if you're a guy like me, you end up trying to impersonate one of the voices.
Okay, so I don't think we've ever really discussed this. You're a fan of The Simpsons.
I am.
Where do you feel like the show stopped being good?
Season 10. After season 10, they became too self-aware, and they were trying too hard. And about that time, the Family Guy show came out and got traction. So if you watch, a lot of the stuff that the Simpsons were doing was trying to was just trying to pretty much emulate how Family Guy was doing things. Even Homer started having those cutaway gags. Like the Simpsons kind of struggled for a minute to find where they fit into the current landscape, and they've gotten it back recently. I feel like if they were on another network and allowed a little more freedom, the Simpsons would be bigger than they are right now. They'll never be what they were in terms of, because like, good God, the Simpsons at one point were like Disney. You didn't have to look hard to find anything Simpsons related walking down your street.
Yeah,
and with edgier content out there more and things like that, the Simpsons struggle to compete.
Yeah, and that's the general consensus that I've gathered from guys in the locker room, friends of mine who are nerds and whatnot. Everybody tends to agree that's like it's season 9, season 10. That's where Simpsons really kind of lost their. I guess
this place smells like old people. I'm gonna go tell my brother Owen, and he's gonna come over here and kick his ass. Wait, sorry, what?
Yeah.
Owen.
Yeah, Owen.
Owen.
It's like my favorite episode is actually from season 12 because it features the Who, but you're getting into that point where like the Simpsons were really getting overly absurd. But no, it was something that came up I think a week or two ago, and it was something that was kind of in the forefront of my mind. Was you brought up the Simpsons. I was like, oh yeah, because it's like for me, it's like season 3 through season 9. Those were like
gold.
Those were the pinnacle
Those
years.
will be put into a museum, in like the museum of relevant art or whatever they have for like when they do movies and stuff, that the cultural relevance. Those 6 seasons specifically will be put in the vault.
Yeah, because like in that time you get Hank Scorpio, which I think is probably one of the best. God, was that season 4 or season 5? But I think that's generally like one of my favorite episodes. Of course, why didn't I think of that? Yeah. But it's just kind of like I said, one of those things that kind of popped into my head. I was like, let's have a little Simpsons powwow. As he's staring at his phone.
Well, no, it's not that. I'm handling some things all at once here. Naturally, I set aside time to, do the show, and life starts happening.
That's what this little device here is. If you see me start playing with it, that means I just had one person message.
Forgive us.
Well, one person just messaged me about something, and I was like, I'll fix it later.
As the song goes, send lawyers, guns, and money. This shit has hit the fan.
Oh, that is still one of Warren Zevon's best songs.
Yep. I really didn't start cranking with it until a couple of years ago. Like for me, my bigs were Excitable Boy, Werewolves of London, Johnny Strikes Up the Band, and Rolling the Headless Thompson Gunner.
Oh,
those were my go-tos.
Literally just name probably the best stuff he's ever done.
And then Lawyers, Guns, and Money just got into my head, and it's catchy as hell.
It's that riff. It's that simple piano. Oh man,
songs that tell a gradual story. Like that one doesn't specifically have like a start, beginning, middle, end, but he's telling you a gradual story throughout the song of what's going on. He's not just singing about, like nowadays everything's just about, I'm gonna get pussy because I have all this money, put some more auto-tune on my voice, I got money, did I mention I've got money, I got pussy, I'm so awesome, I've got money. That is modern music. Back then it was a little bit different.
Well, you would think that the song Lawyers, Guns, and Money would actually be applicable to modern day situations. No, this is like 1977, 76, 77. So I guess, I do have an enjoyment for some newer music, but it's just something about, I don't know, I guess it's the musicianship and the writing of older songs.
It's too produced.
Yeah.
It's too planned. It used to be, it would go something like this. Guy'd be sitting in a studio, he'd have one of these things, and he'd just be going, oh, that's a good riff. Let me try that again. Yeah, that's it. Now, okay. Fuck everything I ever knew. I want a hot dog or two, or whatever. They'd start putting something together.
Very Gordon Lightfoot.
But now it's just like, all right, I'm gonna hit F2, drop this sample track in there. I'm gonna give you like a 16 count, and you can just kind of just come in, do your thing, whatever. And as I said, I got money, I'm so awesome, gonna get all that pussy. I got money. Did I mention I'm awesome? I'm gonna get that pussy. Drugs. That's the song. There's no soul to it. There's a meme. I that I saw one time. It was a side by side. One side it was Beyonce. It was like girls run the world, girls run the world, girls run the world, girls.
Had
run
like
the
nine
world,
producers.
9 producers. Next to it, Freddie Mercury and a piano, and it's Bohemian Rhapsody. One writer.
Yeah,
there's a big difference in the music that's being put out now and the music that was being put back in its heyday when effort was put into it. It wasn't over stylized. It wasn't commercialized yet.
Yeah.
And now everything, you don't even have to put, then you had to write 10 songs and hope that 3 or 4 of them were good in order to get people to buy the album. Now, all you got to do is get a song that's got a 30-second hook that could be featured in a movie or something, and it'll be sold on iTunes.
Yep.
And the person blows up over that one song, and you watch the footage of these concerts, and this dude will come out and he'll try to do one of his B-sides, and people will just be sitting there like this. And
it's
the dude that does like Old Town Road, that'll start playing, then they'll go, ah! But the other, 42 minutes of his 45-minute set, they're sitting there like this. Crickets,
Yeah, it's really, really sad because, I guess it just kind of comes from like the way that pop singles were done in the 50s and the 60s. They were the 3-minute A-side, B-side, single, and that was it. And it wasn't until the 60s when albums really became the thing, where even the filler tracks were good. And that started to progressively go away towards the end of the 80s into the 90s. A little bit into the 90s where, you kind of had some stuff that was good on an album. And then you get back to where it's just, let's put out the single. Let's put out this single. Put out this single. All right, where's an album? We don't have enough for an album. We got a couple singles. That's it. And it's like, I'm expecting,
lazy. That's lazy.
And I expect the next 10, 15 years, it'll cycle back through where people will start putting out full albums, concept albums again, and people will start buying.
I think concept albums are just kind of the way to go right now. If you're going to do an album, you're almost obligated to do a concept album now, because.
But then we're also looking at the same thing where it's like, it's all digital media now. Like, do you really think that somebody's going to go out and pay for a physical copy of something? I mean, I am that kind of person. I have vinyl records because I'm a nerd. But do you see the current generation of people going out and buying CDs and cassettes like we did when we were kids? No. So it's like, it's kind of weird. Like, $9.99, you can download the whole album, or pay $3 and just download the 2 or 3 songs that you want.
Yeah.
It's weird in that market, because that's how I discovered a lot of really great B-side and hidden tracks with like AC/DC, The Who, Queen, Van Halen, Thin Lizzy, was having the CDs and just just hit play and just listen to the whole thing. And so I'm like, I don't care for that song. Oh man, never heard that before. Let me hit rewind and play it again and play it again and play it again. That's how I discovered a lot of the songs that I like, is from literally throwing on an album in the background and just letting it play and just hearing everything. And I that's something I think the current generation is going to miss, is like, they just want to hear the one song that they want to hear. They don't want to really get any deeper to anything new. And it's just sad.
I'm just sitting here bathing in the facts you're dropping right now, dude. Like,
because we've had this discussion of like my 2 favorite bands being The Who and Queen. Some of the best Queen songs are the ones that were not the big radio play songs. And it's a shame, because everybody, when they say Queen, oh, we will rock you, we're the champs. It's like, okay, do you know anything else by them? No.
Fat bottom girls, you make the rockin' world go round.
Absolutely stellar track.
I want
But again,
to ride my bicycle. I want to ride my bike.
both of those are off of the 1979 album Jazz.
Together. Of
Which
course, my favorite
again,
theme song will always be the theme to Flash Gordon because it's just amazing in the musicality. Just sitting there on, I believe it's an A, and he's just
Flash.
Yeah, and it's just so just
which there's a fantastic live version from 81 where they do Flash and then they go right into the Hero, and it is probably one of their best live songs that they do. And again, it's just, for me, throwing on an album and learning about an album. It's like with the Who, you had the concept albums of the Who Sell Out, which was the whole theme was, we're going to do these songs, but we're also going to do songs in between that are like fake advertisements on a pirate radio station. So you listen to the entire Who Sell Out album, and it's like you get I Can See for Miles, and at the very end you hear this thing, the Charles Atlas course is made with dynamic tension, and it's like them making fake ads play onto the songs to go into the next song. And it's absolutely fantastic. It's probably one of their best albums. And then you have
good.
I was gonna say, then with Tommy and Quadrophenia, they are rock operas. So to really enjoy them, you have to go from start to finish. You don't just like, let me start Tommy at Acid Queen and I'm gonna jump to I'm Free. Like, no, you gotta sit there and take the whole thing in. And I think that's what's missing with modern music is fun stuff like that.
Black Veiled Brides, and I'm gonna get some heat for this because apparently it's not cool to like Black Veiled Brides. I didn't know this, but like they had a good concept album a few years back that had some pretty good songs on it. Like I really enjoyed that, but like I try to tell people about it. It's like, oh, Black Veiled Brides, those dudes in mascara. I'm like, well, can you see them wearing mascara while they're singing the song on the radio? No, they shut the fuck up. Like, who cares? But I would say the best concept album that I've seen come out in the last 20 years probably has to be American Idiot.
Yes. I will concur with that.
Tip of the cap to Billy Joe and the rest, but that one is probably one of the like of our generation, that's probably one of the top 5 most iconic albums put out was American Idiot.
Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, it was either that one or one afterwards where they actually did a Who cover. So,
everything comes back to the Who or Black Sabbath eventually. Like
it does.
If somebody plays a riff, it was either done by the Who, Led Zeppelin, or Black Sabbath. One of the 3.
Yeah, because those were the bands that took the whole 3 to 4 chord concept and threw it out the window and said, there are a lot more chords. Let's just try to cram all of them.
And George Thorogood said, fuck that.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I was watching a video the other day. Somebody was doing like the top 10 AC/DC riffs.
Okay.
Where it's Malcolm Young he's playing all of Malcolm's parts. He did like 10 different songs and the positioning was the same 3 fucking chords, just played like different ways. And it's like, well, AC/DC did perfect the 3-chord rock song.
I was just about to get in the AC/DC. I am a staunch, and let me be clear on this. I mean every last letter that I say in this statement.
Let me be clear.
I want to be very clear right now to you.
I want to be very clear
around the world. Fuck AC/DC. I am a AC/DC hater. I cannot, and it's got nothing really even to do with their music. Like their music is what it is. when I first started playing guitar, every pleb and their freaking cousin had that damn red and black SG, and all they would play was AC/DC, and it was either freaking Back in Black, or it was freaking Hell's Bells.
Or Hell's Bells. Highway to Hell, Hell's Bells.
And and this is coming from a guy that predominantly learned Nickelback songs when he started. But like, my God, freaking stereotypical typecast. They all had the shag haircut. It was the black t-shirt, the jeans. They would always have the stupid little derby cap, and they'd all try to play like Angus, and it was annoying. You know how like Guitar Center has the Forbidden Riff? They need to put AC/DC up on the wall right next to it, because I would rather listen to Stairway to Heaven than ever have to listen to another freaking AC/DC song played live ever again.
Okay.
And to you, Mr. Hater out there, look, I didn't know what he's talking about. He's just this insufferable hater. Please put this in capital letters right there.
Okay. So my second guitar ever was an Olympic White Epiphone SG, because I could not find a cherry red SG, specifically because I was an AC/DC fan.
I won't even play one.
Hey, can you pause for 1 second?
No. 1 second. All right, we had a little bit of a commercial break there, but Jesse, you were talking about a guitar.
Yeah. So basically, I had wanted an SG, and every pawn shop and used guitar store in Nashville that I went to just didn't have one, until I came across an Olympic White one, and I got it because I wanted, I was a big AC/DC fan in high school, and I wanted to have an SG. I fit this. It was the stereotype. And the thing was,
and that's why you couldn't find one of the red ones, is because every fucking chud went out and bought one because they thought the shit's cool.
Yeah. And for me, being an AC/DC fan at the time, it was like, okay, cool. I've got the SG. I can do this. And for me, I was learning the songs that not everybody wanted to hear. Like, I think the first one I got down was Rock and Roll Ain't Noise Pollution. I thought it was a pretty easy one to learn. Yeah. But then it was like, because again, I had all of the CDs. There were several tracks that I really wanted to learn because I thought they were really cool riffs, like Nervous Breakdown off of Flick of the Switch, Fly on the Wall from Fly on the Wall, Who Made Who from Who Made Who. So like, there were certain
creative concept of a name, Fly on a Wall off of Fly on a Wall. Wow, really?
Well, it was even like that was even a concept album in a weird sense, because the way that they basically made like a movie out of several of the songs, and it was only released on Betamax. Yeah. So like, that was the thing. I wanted to have an SG for that. And then, of course, being a fan of The Who, I learned that Pete actually played an Olympic White SG in the 70s, early part of the 70s. So that was a cool transition out of the AC/DC phase into The Who. Of course, now I do have a cherry red SG, but it is not an AC/DC guitar. It is the same style guitar that Pete played live at Leeds and Woodstock. And it's for me, it's a pretty cool guitar. It's no Brian May Red Special. As I look at my beautiful Red Special off to the side.
I won't even try out the guitar. If my buddy were to walk into the room and say, "Hey man, check out my new SG, you should try give it a play, I'm gonna probably throw that thing against a fucking wall long before I try to play it. That is how much I despise the SG and AC/DC right there.
Which is kind of sad, because like the SG was a very popular before Angus got a hold of it.
I'll take a Les Paul over an SG any day.
And see, like, now we're getting into the kind of talk
over an SG any day.
I'm at that point where I would consider a Schecter, just because they're a lot hotter. The pickups are wired a lot hotter, and there's a lot more versatility. in the neck and in the playability than there
very
is of,
much so.
of an SG.
Very fast.
Don't get me now, yeah, don't get me wrong. Like, I like Les Pauls. I've owned probably 7 because Pete played Les Pauls in the 70s. But it's something about, it's not so much the playability. It's just I could never. I guess every Les Paul that I had humbuckers. I never had a Les Paul with P90s. Well, that's my SG has P90s, and that was the thing that I learned was like, that's the sound. That is the rock sound, is the P90 sound. And I kind of regret never giving a Les Paul with P90s a chance. Like, I feel like if I was to give that a shot now, I'd be like, oh, that's a sound. But you know, I've got the BMG.
The knock that I could put on a Les Paul is that they are heavy. At least the ones that made Les Paul's name mean something, those were like carrying a cinder block around your neck.
12 pounds.
My guitar teacher, who's since passed away, shout out to Jim. He had a 19, I'm wanting to say 76 Sunfire. Just, oh my God.
Oh yeah.
When you pick it up, you know how it is. The room goes dark, but the spotlight from heaven comes down. Like, it was one of those. Like, you played it in Choir of Angels.
I had a rare opportunity to play it. There's like a 59 gold top. And when I picked the thing up, it was like legit.
You're picking up a religious item.
Like, and it's like
new.
But it weighed that much because of the quality of the wood, the design. And it's just, that was one of those things. It was like, all right, let's plug it into, I forgot what amp it was. It was like an older Fender amp. Yeah. And I just hit that one chord. I'm like, whoa. And I look at the price tag. I'm like, whoa.
Well, you got to be careful with that price tag too, man. Are you familiar with this story? Some years back, this guitar aficionado went into random like guitar centers, guitar stores, things like that, with one goal in mind. He went up to a lot of your middle of the road Ibanez guitars. There's 3 classes of guitars. There's cheap, anybody can afford. There's that middle ground, we're actually putting some effort into the quality of it, and then the high end stuff where you're actually stupid to buy that too because you're just buying the name. But anyway, he went up to the mid level and he bought a guitar, put it on the counter right in front of the store manager, took out a piece of sandpaper, sanded down the body, and it was all wood filler. It wasn't even real wood. It was advertised as like rosewood or something like that, but nope, it was just filler wood. It wasn't real. Just composite wood. And that's why to this day I will not touch the Ibanez brand.
Yeah. I don't think I've never owned, nor have I played an Ibanez.
My buddy, who really got me into wanting to play guitar, he had one glossy black, just blacker than black, and that thing was so reflective, and it kind of reminds me of the forerunner to what Schecter would become, just real hot action. And yeah, man. When I heard that story and I saw the video online, I was just like, I will never touch that brand again. Because if you're doing that to the middle of the road, the ones that most guys probably have that are trying to make a buck, trying to chase their dream, if you're going to do that with the quality stuff, what are you doing on the high end? What are you doing on the low end? You're ripping people off. So they will never get my money.
Yeah, and see, so we're talking about like the 3 levels of guitars that you can get. And what's cool about, I guess, the modern day is everybody used to shit on Epiphone and Squier, saying like, those are the cheap, beginner guitars. And they are.
Well, I'll shit on the Epiphone Les Paul 100% all day.
Yeah.
There's a big difference between the Epiphone Les Paul and the Gibson Les Paul. Continue.
Well, I mean, the only difference is the quality of the wood. They're using the same electronics.
Well, the wood matters.
The wood, that is a key thing people don't understand. Wood absolutely matters when making quality guitars. The thing that Epiphone and Squier have done in the last 5 or 6 years, especially Squier, they're doing the vintage reissue series of like the 57s, 58s, 59s, 60s. And they're doing them to the specs of the original guitars. And the electronics and the setup and everything of those are almost as good as a made in Japan or made in Mexico, or even the lower tier American Fenders, which is really cool because I've never really seen myself as a Stratocaster guy, just because of how chimey they are. But I've learned a lot in the last few weeks of watching a lot of videos and playing around with a few guitar stores that I'm slowly growing to like Stratocasters again. And there's a nice, $500 Squier vintage reissue of like a 57 Strat, and it plays as good as a modern Fender. And that's kind of what's cool, is that they're getting to where the middle of the road guitars are becoming more affordable and more reliable than the top end guitars. Because you're right, you're literally paying for the name.
Mm-hmm.
You're not getting any. I mean, I'm looking over to my left currently, and I have a 1990 Squier precision bass from Japan, and it plays as good as an American Fender bass. I think the pickups need a little bit of work, but for what it is, it's a stellar bass. And then of course I have the consumer affordable Brian May guitar. I couldn't afford the super because it's like $3,000. This thing was $1,100, so it was like affordable but not affordable. And then of course I've got the SG. I got that as a steal. And again, the quality of it's one of the higher end Epiphones. It's not the beginner guitar series where you get the pack of a guitar with one pickup, 2 knobs, a shitty little 10-watt amp, a plastic bag to put the guitar in, because they used to sell those at Media Play all the time. That's actually my first guitar, was the Epiphone Les Paul Goth Series Junior from Media Play. That was my first guitar. So while they serve a purpose as an entry level, they're never going to be that good. And that's why it's like, there are some entry level guitars that you can get that aren't bad. They're good for practice when you're playing in your room, or if you want to hot rod it, you can easily put better pickups in it, better pots, redo the wiring, tuning the tuning machines. There's a lot of things you can do to take a cheap guitar and make it playable. I mean, again, you're literally paying for the high dollar guitars. You're paying for the name, and that's what sucks.
Getting to be that way. Stuff though, brother.
Amplifiers. Yeah, it's because I'm constantly keeping cough drops in. My mouth gets all sticky. I say that as I have 3 different Vox amplifiers on my floor.
I've got a big PV 200. It's dual speakered, and it'll chorus PV chorus 200. I want to say, and that sucker. Oh yeah, it rocks.
PV for the guitar amps, I've never messed with, but PV for bass, some of my best amps were PVs.
You get that dual speaker action going.
The bass amp that I have in here was it the Rumble 50? Yeah, I've got the Fender Rumble 50, which is it's a single 1x12, but it's an amazing bass amp. It's got a lot of great low end. I can adjust the mids, a little bit of scoop to get a bit more punch, but I don't have to have anything crazy. Ideally, me being a vintage guy, I really want for my bass stuff, I would love to get like the mid 70s Sun Coliseum bass head and amplifiers, just like John Entwistle had, because I have the John Entwistle bass. For the SG, I'd like to have high watt because that's what Pete played through in the 70s. For the Brian May special, Red Special, I want a couple AC30s, like real valve driven AC30s that just, once you crank them up, hit the treble booster, you hit that chord and it's like, that's the sound. That's the noise that I want to make. And it's kind of hard to do because like two of the Vox amps they're combination tube, valve, however you want to call them, and solid state. So you get the best of both worlds, but you're lacking on the tube side because it's not a full tube amp and you're not getting the sound of melting glass. With the solid state, it's just it's there, but it just lacks something. And I mean, they're great for probably small gigs, or for me sitting at home with headphones on, like you don't really notice the difference, but there's something about having a tube amp, just full volume, little to no pedals. That's another thing. Like, were you ever a pedal guy?
As little as possible. Chorus, reverb, distortion, tuner.
And that's the thing. I had several Digitech like foot switches, like they had like all the cool little bells and whistles to them, and they were.
I had
neat,
the processor for a while. I cleaned it up and just had the little two pedal with the wah wah and for and volume thing, and just go through the channels, because like I would do a lot of sets, so I would just preset and I would just go next.
I've still got I still have a Digitech 2101. Yep. The rack. I got a 2101 rack unit because I wanted a 2120, like John Entwistle had, and this was the closest thing I could get at the time. And again, I got a lot of presets on it. It's really cool, but it lacks. And like I said, the more I've learned about how a lot of these bands got their sounds, it wasn't just 3 or 4 distortion pedals put together. It was really massive amplifiers cranked all the way up with maybe a chorus pedal, and in the case of Brian May, a treble booster to really boost the top end. Pete Townsend used an early Vox fuzz box for that really grungy sound. And a lot of bands, when recording, were using Dallas Rangemaster treble boosters or plexis in the studio straight into an amplifier, and that was it. That's what the sound is. So it's interesting because like the older that I've gotten, the more I've learned about this stuff. It's like all the money that I wasted trying to get this sound when it was a lot more easier to do. But I guess that's the advantage of having YouTube and social media, is that we're able to gather these resources a lot more easily than we could 15 years ago. When I'm trying to learn about what do they use for this, what do they use for that, I had to hopefully find it in a book or find it in a video. Now I can just like, what did Brian use for the song? Oh, that's it. I've got that. Okay, cool. See, this is the dangerous part, is that we get me talking about guitars and I'll talk for hours. You're just kind of like, yeah. It's just
I never really worried about sounding specifically like. I just wanted to be in the vein of, like, my big thing is I like a wall of sound, and not that it's loud. It needs to sound full,
rich. It's a full sound.
Yeah. And I spent a lot of time trying to find the right setup, but then it kind of just occurred to me, if you know what to play and when to play it, you can make one guitar sound like 8 if you're playing the right thing at the right time, in the right spot. So like it really has less to do with the bells. It's kind of like wrestling. Less to do with the bells and whistles. It's more to do with where you place them and why.
Yep. And
yeah.
And again, that's one of those things, like the older that we've gotten, the more we've learned, like we were approaching how we were wanting to make that sound very differently. Like I'm going to continue to use the Brian May thing because it's such a unique sound. I always thought that you had to have this kind of amplifier, this kind of thing, this kind of guitar. When in reality, to get a lot of that sound, there's a lot of similar things you can do, but the main thing is playing with a sixpence coin. That's how Brian gets a lot of his sound, and his attack is from a coin. And you can do that on an SG or a Les Paul or a Stratocaster. And with a few tweaks here and there, you can get an approximation sound. And it's, to play like Stevie Ray Vaughan, you really just have to have, really thick gauge strings and have a very strong attack playing with a pick. It's just, we always thought that you had to have this, you had to have that, you had to have that. It's like, no, it's just this. It's all in your hands. It's all how you play it.
I was never really a light or a heavy string guy. I was more of a what kind of string. I was an Elixir guy. I still am. I love Elixir strings. I love the fact that even when they're worn out, they don't feel like, like you're running your hand over a cheese grater trying to play them because you're too lazy to go get strings. I love my Elixirs. I will never change from my Elixir strings, and I encourage anybody that plays to get them. Now there'll be the snobs out there. Well, you don't get the sound you're looking for if you're trying to do this, that, and the other. Like, brother, I'm not trying to play, dive bars, at 1 a.m. when nobody's paying attention anyway. I'm just sitting in my office playing songs and singing along horribly and trying not to hurt my hand doing it. For me, Elixirs are the way to go. You got something else better that works for you, then use it. Like, nobody's putting a gun to your head.
I don't think I've ever used Elixir strings.
I like them.
Okay.
They're a little pricey. But they last.
I've gone between Diario and Ernie Ball. Like
Ernie Ball is the brand I will alternate onto for my electric. But overall, I still prefer just using Elixirs, straight Elixirs. But I will use Martin strings if I really, 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 really care about getting a nice, clean sound. I will drop some Martins on my acoustic.
See, that's the interesting thing is when I had an acoustic and I played it, I had electric strings on mine because it had a much more bright sound.
Mm-hmm.
It's a Pete Townsend thing. There are several other guitar players that they would string them with electric strings because they were able to really strum and get a more bright tone from an acoustic.
And they're easier to manipulate if they're still trying to do their little runs, which is fine. But to which I say, just get a stomp box that approximates an acoustic sound and just play it on electric. Mm-hmm. But I digress. That is the next thing I want to get is if I'm going to buy a box, I do want to get an acoustic box for my electric.
Yeah, I'm kind of hit and miss with electric, not electric, but acoustic. Like I come across ones that I've liked, but not to the point where I want to buy them. Like I really want a J200. I've always wanted a J200 because it's a very well-rounded and solid guitar. I also have an issue with major body guitars because of my shoulder. That's why I had to sell. I had a Gretsch for the longest time, and I just couldn't play it because my arm had to stick out so much. So that's why I like thin line guitars. I like basses that have wings on them that I can rest my arm on.
Yeah, I prefer the dreadnought body. I cannot stand those cutaways because to me they sound too tingy. They sound, but I've discovered like the older I get, the less I need girth on the neck. I like this guitar will hurt after a while for me to play. I love this guitar, but I need a thinner neck to really be comfortable. And
and what, I forgot what brand is that.
It's a local to the city I live in. It's their house brand. It's called Indiana. It's a Mojave. They only, as far as I know it, they only sell it at the place up the street from me.
Oh, I mean, that's also a cool thing, is finding like good local places. I know, God, I live in Nashville, so you can throw a stone.
Dime
a dozen.
As the snow falls, it'll hit 13 in one, 1 square foot,
Gibson's, main USA plant is here in Nashville. So
I'm sure the security in that place is laser freaking focused.
No, it's not like anything.
I'll be right back.
No, I
gotta go.
I had a buddy who worked for Gibson up to like a certain point. When they had a whole bunch of layoffs, he got laid off.
Oof.
And he told me how it was, and it was, the company didn't care about a lot of things at the time. The quality of the guitars in that time frame were not that great. And you can talk to a lot of pro players, and there's a time between, I think it's like 07 and 2016. Like, it's a long period where Gibson just was not good. Same thing with Epiphone. Anything that you got in that time was just like inferior body quality, paint checking, finish checking, just lots of issues. And I don't know how it is now, because I don't have any friends that work for Gibson. I've got friends that work for Epiphone, and I know Epiphone's been cranking out some incredible products. Not a product placement here, but trying to break into their place, it wouldn't be that hard. To be perfectly honest, I don't think it would be that hard. But is it really
wants to go down there and check it out? If you want to send me the address in the DMs, that'd be cool.
I have to look it up, but yeah, I mean, it's not hard to find. It's actually not very far from where I work. So I could easily pop over there one night and just start shoving guitars in my bag. Yeah, it's just, it's, I guess, like I said, I got out of that whole, I really wanted like specific guitars. And it's like, there's not a whole lot with Gibson that appeals to me right now, not in the modern sense. Like, I would love a vintage Studio Les Paul, or an SG version Les Paul, which is one of the early 60s. I'd love one of those, but there's nothing modern with Epiphone or Gibson that I really want right now. I mean, I've got the SG that I want, but I could easily, take a shopping list and see what I could procure. But what's funny is Gibson also owns the rights to Kramer and Steinberger, the headless guitars and basses, and the lower tier version of those, the Spirits. And that's kind of what I'm after currently, is a Spirit 4-string travel bass, because I'd like to have one. What I was doing when I got my BMG was I was taking it with me on the road. I had a small amp with me, and I was like, oh man, this is so much shit to fucking take around. This is a full-size guitar. Whereas with like a little headless bass, it's something I could easily have in a hotel room with a little headphone amp, and just have something to do whenever I'm bored. Like, I would love to take the stuff with me to Dallas, but it's going to be a logistic nightmare. But that's the thing. Like, I want to have the travel stuff that I can take with me. So like, whenever I come back up, Chicago way, and we're able to hang out, I can bring something along that's not going to take up a lot of space and be a pain in the ass to deal with.
No, really what you need to do is put aside a few $100 and come up here. I'll take you down to the shop and we'll get you one of these bad boys.
Well, I mean, I'm potentially going to be up that way in, I think, a month or two. I got to double check, but there's apparently a really well-known guitar place in Chicago that I'd like to visit just for, all right, there's vintage guitars, there's vintage amps. I want to go window shop. Especially, not that I'm going to come home with anything unless the credit card isn't maxed out. Then it's like, well, let's just swipe that. I load the Ecto up with like a couple AC 30s in the back. Make the entire apartment complex hate me.
Jesus, I can only imagine how that would go. But
yep.
All right, I think this is a good place to put a bow on it. Call it a night.
If not, I'll just sit here and talk guitar stuff all night.
More or less. No. As it's getting 10:30, I want to kind of keep it down for the neighbors and all that jazz. But this was definitely an interesting topic that we had not really talked about, and that's guitar tech and all that stuff and our hatred for AC/DC.
Your hatred, I still care for some of it, not all of it.
Give me time, I'll convert you. But Jesse, the words of wisdom, if you please.
Ooh, because we are recording on a Saturday, and I know we have lots of our friends at shows, and we know what they're going to do after the show, and we don't want them adding to our population. We don't want them to totally subtract from the population, but I'm pretty sure some of the guys are going to be the reason why some signs are put up on Monday and why we have a safety briefing.
Well, then, with that being said, enjoy your weekend while you can, folks, because this is the crew of Pop Goes the Zebra wishing everyone on Earth a good night, and we will see you next time. Take care, everybody. Peace.